the Gmail account, the Kickman account that you guys initially received with the photo of you in it, and the phone number, those originated through their IP addresses at your office.
Well, he took the photo of me at my office.
Right.
To understand how a man's meticulously crafted narrative could be dismantled by a single digital thread, we must return to the cold morning of December 14, 2023. In the quiet suburban landscape of Broomfield, Colorado, an officer was dispatched for a simple wellness check. Upon arriving, the officer contacted a neighbor, who revealed that Daniel had also called them, asking them to check on Christy. This small redundancy was the first faint note of something unusual. The officer proceeded to the Krug residence, where the garage door stood slightly ajar. Inside, the initial concern spiraled into a grim discovery. Christy Krug was found unresponsive on the garage floor. Medical assistance was summoned immediately, but it was too late. The scene was no longer one of concern, but of violent death. Soon after, Daniel Krug arrived. To the officers on scene, he presented the very image of a devastated husband, collapsing to the ground in a display of overwhelming grief. He was a man consumed by loss, his world shattered in an instant. As investigators began to process the scene, Daniel provided them with a ready-made explanation for the tragedy. He informed them that he and his wife had been the targets of a persistent and increasingly dangerous stalker. The foundation of a complex story was laid, a loving couple terrorized by an unseen enemy, culminating in a brutal and senseless murder. The initial investigation was thus framed around finding this phantom aggressor, a specter from Christie's past who had apparently returned to exact a terrible price. The grieving husband had given them a suspect, a motive, and a clear path forward. Yet within this carefully constructed tragedy, the truth was something far more sinister and calculated. The investigation naturally delved into the history of the alleged stalking, forcing a look back 1 month prior to the murder. It was then that Daniel and Christy Krug had formally visited the police station to file a report. Christy, appearing anxious and afraid, detailed a disturbing series of events. She explained that an ex-boyfriend from over 2 decades ago, a man she had barely spoken to in years, had suddenly re-entered her life. The initial contact was unsettling, but it had quickly escalated into something far more menacing. She provided investigators with a log of communications, a collection of evidence that painted a portrait of obsessive harassment. The messages were described as sexually explicit and deeply inappropriate, designed to intimidate and unsettle. The couple reported that the stalker had also sent graphic photos, crossing a line into overt psychological warfare. The threat felt real, tangible, and immediate. The narrative of the stalker's escalating aggression was bolstered by a particularly chilling piece of evidence. Christy presented an email that contained a photograph of her husband Daniel, captured as he was heading to work that very morning. The image was proof that the stalker was not just a voice on the internet but a physical presence, watching their every move.
Where is he right now? What kind of car is he? Like this was alarming. He's never said this kind of stuff to me before. And this is when I then contact you guys, because this now is escalating. This is not just threats against me, it's threats against my husband.
The message accompanying the photo was filled with taunts and veiled threats against Daniel's life. For Christy, this was the final straw. The danger was no longer just directed at her. It had expanded to encompass her entire family. She conveyed her profound fear to the investigators, emphasizing that the situation was spiraling out of control. Back in the present-day interrogation room, Daniel recounted these same events from his perspective as the surviving victim. He portrayed himself as a man consumed by guilt. He claimed that, in an effort to shield him from worry, Christy had not shared the full severity of the threats. Now, with the benefit of hindsight, he was tormented by what he did not know, and the actions he did not take.
Share all of the details of the log. And so, as I got all of the details, my panic level has gone considerably higher. I got all of the details. My panic level has gone considerably higher.
During this performance of remorse, he strategically revealed that his marriage with Christy was going through a difficult period, describing it as being on the rocks. This admission served to paint him as transparent and honest, a man willing to expose his own marital troubles in the pursuit of justice for his murdered wife. However, as detectives dug deeper, the physical evidence at the crime scene began to conflict with Daniel's story. A search of the residence revealed that multiple home security cameras had been turned off at the time of the incident. Another camera was found deliberately obscured, its lens covered with blue painter's tape. An external stalker would have no reason or ability to disable the internal security system. The first significant crack in Daniel's narrative had appeared. The investigation then focused on the primary suspect Daniel had provided, the ex-boyfriend. Detectives tracked the man to his home in Eagle Mountain, Utah, more than 8 hours away. When confronted by law enforcement, the man was cooperative but confused. He acknowledged that he had dated Christy decades ago when they were young, calling her his very first girlfriend.
1999.
Oh, so like a long while ago.
She was my very first girlfriend ever.
Oh, okay.
But he was adamant that he had not had any contact with her in years and was completely unaware of the recent events. His alibi for the day of the murder was verified and irrefutable. There was no evidence he had traveled to Colorado or had any involvement whatsoever. With the ex-boyfriend definitively cleared, the police were left with a troubling realization: the stalker, as described by Daniel and Christy, did not exist. The entire foundation of the case had been a fabrication. The focus of the investigation now shifted dramatically, turning away from the phantom ex-boyfriend and directly toward the grieving husband. With the stalker theory completely discredited, the investigators brought Daniel back to the central, undeniable piece of digital evidence. They confronted him with the fact that the threatening Gmail account and the associated phone number, the entire digital persona of the stalker, had been created and operated through an IP address traced directly to his place of work. The electronic ghost that had been haunting his family had originated from his own office. Cornered by this irrefutable fact, Daniel's composure wavered, but he quickly formulated a new layer to his deception.
There are Wi-Fi access throughout the facility for employees, and there's public Wi-Fi access throughout the entire facility. And we literally post the passwords in every single meeting room.
He claimed that his workplace had a public Wi-Fi network accessible to anyone in the facility. He was no longer dealing with a simple ex-boyfriend, he argued, but a technologically sophisticated adversary, capable of masking their location and framing an innocent man. The detectives did not accept this new explanation. They saw the pattern of deception and began to lay out their own theory of the crime, a chilling narrative constructed from the facts they had gathered. They proposed that Daniel himself was the architect of the entire stalking scenario. They suggested that perhaps fueled by marital discontent and suspicions of infidelity, he had created the fake identity to test his wife's loyalty. When her response was not what he desired, the plan morphed into something far more malevolent. The stalker became the perfect scapegoat for a murder he was already planning. He sent the picture of himself to his wife to solidify the threat, controlled the entire flow of information, and played the dual roles of perpetrator and victim.
That was able to use your IP address from your work to create accounts, to send messages and photos, to act as a stalking suspect. I think you got confirmation or found out that she had a boyfriend this morning or something.
The protection order. And you just found it today.
They pointed out the inconsistencies he could not explain: the disabled cameras, the intimate knowledge of their lives, the digital trail leading directly to him. Under the weight of the evidence, Daniel's elaborate web of lies disintegrated. His performance was over. Realizing there was no escape from the truth he had tried so hard to bury, he ceased his attempts at explanation and requested an attorney. In that moment of silence, his guilt was palpable. The subsequent legal proceedings laid bare the full extent of Daniel Krug's cold and calculated plan. The prosecution presented the jury with a mountain of evidence that meticulously deconstructed his fiction. The digital footprints he thought he had cleverly disguised led investigators directly back to him, revealing a plot to not only murder his wife but also to frame an innocent man from her distant past. The man who had sat before cameras and performed the role of a grief-stricken husband was exposed as the true monster. A jury found him guilty of first-degree murder, stalking, and criminal impersonation. The final act of his drama concluded not with a tragic mystery, but with a sentence of life in prison. The story of Daniel Krug serves as a dark testament to a chilling deception. He crafted an elaborate narrative of fear, casting himself as a victim, while he was, in reality, the sole author of the tragedy, a predator hiding in plain sight.